The war between Russia and Ukraine is happening thousands of miles away, but its effect is being felt across the globe, perhaps nowhere more acutely than here in Africa. The two countries are among the world's top producers of wheat and sunflower oil, which many African countries rely on. A disruption in their supply has worsened an existing food crisis on the continent, with millions of people facing hunger and starvation in 2023, 25 million of them here in Nigeria. Linda Kure is preparing what could be the only meal of the day for her 6 children, a local porridge with milled corn and some vegetables. Rising food prices mean her children are often hungry.
Abinci yayi tsada yanzu. In mun dan fita ko dogo mun dan samu za mu shiga kasuwa sai mu lallaba mu kawo gida. In mun kawo gida ina dafa yara na 7. Nika raba yara biyu mutane biyu a plate guda, mutane biyu a plate guda daya. Sai sannan yaro da ya rage na zan hada ni da shi sai mu ci sannan abinci ya ishe mu ci.
Like many countries in Africa, Nigeria relies on imports to feed its population. And in 2021, it spent over $200 million on wheat imported from Russia. But that wheat has been in short supply since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. At this market on the outskirts of Nigeria's capital, Abuja, sellers of staples like pasta and bread say prices have shot up by as much as 50% in the last year, with many Nigerians unable to afford them. Merchants here say they see every day how hard it's been for their customers. The United Nations says 25 million people are facing a food crisis this year in Nigeria alone. Terrorism, the effects of climate change and the impact of COVID-19 pandemic are all underlying issues. But disruptions in food supply from Russia and Ukraine have made the crisis more acute.
The clearest line you can draw between the Russian invasion of Ukraine and food price in Nigeria is that Nigeria is an import-dependent country when it comes to food. Nigeria is a net importer of food. So when there is a disruption in that import value chain, it's bound to affect the prices of food and availability of food in Nigeria.
It's a desperate situation for millions of Nigerians displaced by violence in their communities and taking shelter in camps. They rely on food aid from humanitarian organizations, but soaring prices have forced aid organizations to slim down their operations, and they are now unable to provide food every day.
If the war continue, the war between Russia and Ukraine continue, and the food prices continue to increase on this scale, we cannot be able to feed the number we are feeding now. Before the war, we feed like 5,000, but now, because we have to scale it down and feed maybe just 300.
Children are among the most vulnerable, and feeding them is top priority at this camp in Abuja for the internally displaced. Fatima Abubakar lives here with her 3 children. But finding enough food to eat is not just a Nigerian problem. Uganda hosts more refugees than any country in Africa, and it's struggling to provide food for them. In South Sudan, nearly 8 million people are expected to face hunger this year. In Sudan, grain shipments from Ukraine arrived in early September as part of an initiative brokered by the UN and Turkey to allow a safe corridor for shipping vital grains. The UN says more than 9 million tons have been exported from Ukraine through the Black Sea because of that initiative. But the shipment is still below pre-war levels, and prices still remain high for poor Africans. But the war has also sent oil prices skyrocketing. And for countries like Nigeria that depend on imported petroleum products, that means having to pay more to bring the petrol in, and more in turn to transport food to hungry people. Analysts say the Russia-Ukraine war should be a lesson for Nigeria and other African countries to reduce their dependence on imports, especially food.
It calls for us to then re-examine our agri policies, how we carry out these things, and how we can ramp up production of our common staple. You can't just outsource your food security to other countries.
While the war rages in Ukraine, seeds are being planted for a longer-term solution to the food crisis in Africa. The African Development Bank has launched a $1.5 billion loan facility. It's meant to help farmers in 24 African countries boost production and mitigate the food and hunger crisis exacerbated by the war. A crisis that's personal, not political, for millions of people like Linda Kure, who have hungry children and few resources to feed them.